Alrighty, so welcome to the What You Need to Know to Jumpstart Virtual Agent. This is a live on ServiceNow session. This is our safe harbor notice in case we do talk about any forward-looking statements. We just want you to know it's based on what we believe is coming out, but there are still uncertainties that may come up and things may change. As far as housekeeping is concerned, we have saved time at the end for question and answer. So please use the question and answer button in the meantime, along the way, if you do have questions. The presentation will be recorded and shared on our ServiceNow community. We do webinars and meetups. Webinars are recorded. Meetups are open conversations and dialogue. We have this one recorded so it can be shared for purposes later on. After the event, you will be prompted to fill out a short survey, and we really appreciate all your feedback. It helps us make every session just that much better. Alrighty. Again, today's session is a part of the Live on ServiceNow curated event series to connect you and with experts and peers that can help you deploy products faster and achieve value faster. So we hope you can join us for some other sessions. You'll see the schedule by scanning the QR code or checking out the link that was just dropped in the chat. Just pause right there in case you're using that QR code. Awesome. Quick introductions. My name is Isabella. I'm a staff product manager with our IT service management product. I have been with ServiceNow for the last 5 or 6 years now, primarily working on our virtual agent product. And I am joined with Jason, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys might be joining. Jason Leung, I'm part of the ITSM product management team, and I focus also on our virtual agent product. Happy to join and share some of the ways we can get started with virtual agent today.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. Alrighty, so we're going to start off strong with a poll. So our question to you is, what is your virtual agent timeline at this point? I think this is, there you go, the right question. Here you go. Are you implementing this quarter? Oh, I still think this might be the wrong question. If we can change to the next one. Are you planning to implement virtual agent this quarter, this year? You haven't quite put your plans together to share, or you are other. So I think
Hold on, Isabella, I think I may have put the wrong questions in there. If you could pivot for like 2 minutes while I adjust it, I am so sorry.
No worries at all. Let me know when that is pulled up, and we'll come back to the polling. We'll start off with the foundations first, and then we'll go back to the poll. So IT service management is built on the power of the platform. I like to show this slide to really set the foundation for our conversation and showcase that extensive suite of ITSM. So starting off with standard, this is a part of our core of ITSM. It's really how organizations modernize their IT. And then building upon that, we have the products in our Automate package or ITSM Pro. This is really bringing the power of AI and ML to our existing suite of products, and it affords you expanded capabilities and functionality as well. For those organizations that are ready to optimize their people and processes, we also have ITSM Enterprise, which brings the power of workforce optimization and process optimization into the conversation. But we're really here to focus on virtual agent. So virtual agent, if you'll see here, is really where you're going to see that 50% deflection of incidents requests that are coming in from your organization. And a lot of what we want to talk about today is how we can set you up and how you can think about virtual agent in order to achieve that minimum of 50% incident deflection. We have other sessions as well that will be more geared towards best practices in the upcoming weeks. But right now, we're really focusing on what you need to know just to get started with virtual agent at a high level. What's involved in it? What does the functionality look like? And where you need to focus your time and energy on. So I'm going to pause there to see if our poll has been brought up. Awesome. So we're going back to our poll question. So what is your virtual agent implementation timeline? we really like to talk about this to see where everyone is at that we're chatting with. That way we can really gear the conversation to where you are on your journey. So we'll just leave it open for a full minute, about 40 more seconds. If you could answer if you're implementing this quarter, this year, or you haven't quite set firm plans on when you're implementing. Also, if it's other, you can add to the chat some details about what your implementation plan is. Alrighty. Just about 15 seconds or less. I think we still have a few people that haven't answered, but that's okay. Awesome. So just to end that poll, and we can share the results. So we're seeing about 22% of our participants who are implementing this quarter. So this is great. This session and our next session will be really helpful for you as you're on this journey. Implementing this year, again, you're doing the right steps and getting as much information as you can in the beginning of the process. And then if you don't have plans yet, hopefully this conversation that we're having right now might start helping you formalize that plan as well. And then we've completed the pilot and waiting for implementation. That's amazing. We love to hear it. If you have any questions or any concerns too, at the end, we can chat about it too. Alrighty. So the next question I was going to ask as well is, if you're planning on implementing Virtual Agent in the next 6 months, would you be interested in a hands-on workshop with Q&A? Our spaces are limited for that as well. So we want to give you optimal opportunity to sign up for that. If you are responding yes, which quite a few of you are, we will try and drop the link for registration in the chat so that you can sign up right away and you don't have to worry about spaces being full. It is a hands-on workshop, so we don't want too many people, so that we can really help help everyone on one by one. Awesome. So I think we're almost at completed number of responses. About 70% are saying yes, very interested. 30% are not ready for that part yet. No worries, we will have more of these sessions in the future if this upcoming one isn't going to be the right timing for you. Yeah, so that's great. We're going to jump right back into it. So as I was mentioning, how can we get you to that 50% deflection? So I want to give you kind of a basis of how you're enabling self-service here. So employees go to the phone, Teams, Slack, whatever it is that you're using for messaging channels, and they send a request or incident to the virtual agent. They have an issue going on, or they have a request. That virtual agent then uses the power of automated resolution via the out-of-the-box conversations that ITSM has provided, or other BUs, business units, as well as any conversations that you have designed for your specific employees' needs and requests, with the power of NLU, Flow Designer, Integration Hub, and AI Search to really deflect and answer these questions, create incidents, fulfill requests, things like that. Really the power of your virtual agent. And the thing that I often tell people to focus on first is your catalog and your knowledge base. So the catalog items that you create, the knowledge articles you create, are really going to be what deflects the most and where you should be spending a lot of your time. So making sure that that's a really robust set of knowledge bases, catalog items, etc., so that when you do start your implementation with virtual agent and you do start using it, it is actually providing more value for your employees. From there, we also have a seamless handoff to Live Agent as a fallback, or just as a switch to Live Agent for those that still need further help and the virtual agent was not able to deflect everything. We know those situations happen, so we have that seamless handoff. Within Live Agent as well, we have almost a virtual agent experience. So say the Live Agent has a standard set of questions they're going to go ask the individual regardless of what the virtual agent was able to accomplish or not. So say, oh, this is your request. We need you to fill out this form or these set of questions. You can enable autopilot. So to ask those questions to gather that information so that agent can then focus on some other things or actually executing things in the background. So we almost have like a virtual agent within the live agent experience as well. Additionally, from there, we do want actionable notifications going back to the employee. So those can be, you have a request waiting for approval, a comment has been updated on your incident, whatever it might be. We do have that actionable notification going back to the employee as well. And then we do know that some people are going to go to your classic portal or email to get help and requests. We also have issue auto resolution with our virtual agent. Issue auto resolution is when something comes in through portal or email and the virtual agent picks up that incident or that request and acts as a first line of defense. They proactively reach out to the employee. They say, hey, I saw you have issues with your VPN. Would you like my help with it? Employee says yes, run through that conversation specific to VPN connectivity issues. And then the employee can either say, yes, that resolved my issue, please close this. Or the employee can say, I still need help, please assign it to an actual agent. And that agent will then be assigned it and they will be able to proactively reach out to the employee. So those are kind of the dynamics of what's going on with virtual agent that I like to talk about. I know that's a lot. So just keep in mind that every little part of virtual agent works very seamlessly together. So kind of how we like to talk about getting started. As I mentioned, your service catalog and your knowledge articles are going to be your cream of the crop, the best part of your virtual agent, if you can refine that and get that really robust, because that's where the virtual agent is going to get a lot of its value from. From there, we have our admin center. Our admin center is where your admins can go to make sure that they're on the right path to getting virtual agent up and running and whatever the business outcome they're driving towards is. In addition to that, we have the CI homepage, which is more specific to conversational interfaces. So all the plugins you need to set up virtual agent, AI search, NLU, any configurations you want to make for your design, your brand, all of that can be done within our CI homepage as well. And it's very easy, very intuitive with kind of some bars and some progress information on how much your virtual agent is set up. Then we also have topic recommendations. Topic recommendations is when you can analyze all your historical issues, requests, whatever it might be. And the model will then spit out, this is the area where you've had most of your requests or incidents. This is where you should focus on building conversations. It's your low-hanging fruit where you can bring a lot of value to your employees because they're constantly coming in from phone, from email, from wherever it might be. And it'll break that down also based on language as well. So you can make sure to really target the areas you're looking for with the right kind of conversations. It's where you want to get started with your virtual agent. A lot of this too, Jason will go through in our live demo. So then you have VA Designer and NLU Workbench VA Designers where you can go customize your conversations based on your organization's need, and NLU Workbench is where you can do a lot of your tuning of your models. And then finally, we have VA Analytics and Success Dashboard. Now that you've done all of this work, we want to see how your virtual agent is performing and frankly, how all your ServiceNow products are performing in your environment. So you can use analytics to see where your successes are, where your gaps and opportunities might lie, and where you want to then direct your roadmap to what you want to build next, what you want to configure, update, etc. So that's a great area to kind of close that loop. Going off, I'm going to see if there's any questions in the Q&A. No, I'm not seeing any. Any in the chat, Jason, that we need to chat about first before I keep going?
I think we're good. We can continue on.
Okay, great. So I mentioned collaboration channels. So for collaboration channels, some key steps you'll need to take is ensuring that you have all the valid ServiceNow entitlements. There's conversational integrations with Microsoft Teams that require Glide virtual agent plugins. And then as an admin, you'll need to navigate to install all these relevant plugins. And if needed, make sure you always visit the ServiceNow ServiceNow store for the latest plugins. And after installing, you'll have to configure some of these conversational interfaces or integrations like Microsoft Teams, but all of this can be done in our CI homepage, which makes it really quick, easy, and intuitive to get it all done. Kind of going off this for those of you that are our Microsoft Teams users, no matter where you are with ServiceNow today, your organization can get more value and deliver better experiences for your employees from existing investments with ServiceNow and Microsoft Teams. So no matter how your org deploys applications, the integration is flexible, and you can start with a crawl, walk, or run kind of methodology here. If virtual agent is strong, then consider integrating it with Teams as an additional channel that will make employees access even easier. So really just meeting your users where they are. That way the work remains seamless and they're getting more value out of ServiceNow and specifically virtual agent as well. And it is available for the two different license ITSM standard, HRSD standard with virtual agent light, agent to employee chat, major incident management, employee center, as well as ITSM and HRSD Pro or enterprise license, where you get all of the above, the full suite of virtual agent and employee center pro that you can take advantage of. So as I mentioned, live agent, so you can configure agent chat to enable live agents to chat with your with your users and manage various conversations and features. We also have advanced work assignment, which will intuitively route the request to the correct agent with that right skill set. So that's important to note as well. We also have dynamic translation, so language detection and dynamic translation for languages that are not supported or do not have a NLU model already configured out of the box. You can now leverage our language detection and dynamic translation to seamlessly translate user conversations and leveraging existing NLU models. So you could be in conversation and it doesn't have to be the individual's primary language that they're speaking in. If they switch over to Spanish, the virtual agent will pick up on that and say, hey, I've detected that you're speaking in Spanish. Would you like to switch this conversation in Spanish? They can say yes or no and continue that conversation naturally as well. Alrighty. As I mentioned before, ITSM and some of the other products within ServiceNow HRCSM have already built some conversations out of the box. ITSM has about 75 plus conversations and feature functionality with ITSM that you can leverage out of the box. So really, a lot of the value is activating and using these out of the box conversations, modifying them to fit your business requirements, obviously, but not starting from zero. You can also start from some of these conversations that have already been built for you. You can configure in a way that is not disrupted, but also eye towards the future of more conversational experiences with your employees. Okay. So also a hot topic at Knowledge 23, we showed a preview of the first products that will be generally available with our Vancouver release for generative AI. The first is the generative AI controller app, which provides the intelligent connection layer to third-party large language model services. The first two that ship out of the box will be OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. The second part of this release will be the updated version of AI Search that is now optimized for generative AI. AI Search Assist is the first application that uses the generative AI controller to improve Genius search results in Portal, Virtual Agent, and Global Search. Now, that second part, the AI search, is under controlled release as well. So it is not generally available. If it is something when you start implementing virtual agent down the road, it may be available just for all users. Most people here are just now getting ready to implement or thinking about implementing. So this can be, a little bit more on the horizon for you. Alrighty, so I know I talked a lot, so we have some questions. If you can throw it in the chat, what are your desired business outcomes? A lot of what we work on here within ServiceNow is deflecting incidents and cases, increasing agent productivity, and improving employee experience. So those are the three areas in which we keep in mind when we're building conversations, when we're building the next features and functionalities. So we'd love to hear in the chat which business outcome speaks to you the most. Additionally, what would you like to learn more about when activating virtual agent that would help you achieve these desired business outcomes? And lastly, what are some challenges in achieving these outcomes that with virtual agent that we can potentially assist you with? I also see two questions in the chat. So I'm going to wait a moment and let everyone throw their answers in the chat and we can look at those. But there is a question, how does it route to the right agent? And particularly, we are global. We need questions from EE in Europe to go to the EU team. Specifically for a live agent. So using advanced work assignment, your agents have skills assigned to them, languages assigned to them. And so those requests or incidents that come in, using the short description, things like that, it can classify what skill is required for that incident or that request and then route it to the correct agent, also based on availability as well. I don't know, Jason, if you know, can you route them based on location?
Yeah, there should be some opportunities to do that. I don't actually see that question, so I don't know if it's directly
It's
to.
in the question and answer function.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So we'll just.
Yeah, there should be routing criteria that can be based on location as well, with some of that routing for live agents.
Amazing. Okay. So some questions in the chat. Andrea says, hi, Jason. They are classified for internal use and employees. How would I use Now Assist and Virtual Assistant in that case?
Yeah, for this one, really like virtual agent is just serving content based on what your users have access to. So there's two flavors of it. One, you can either, if you build, a public topic that surfaces some of this content, then everyone that can reach the virtual agent would be able to see that content. If it's driving based off of, say, like a knowledge-based article, it will respect the permissions that users can see for that. So in this case, let's say, for example, depending on where you deploy your virtual agent, whoever the users are that can reach that are going to probably in this case be your employees, I would imagine. And if they have access to the KB articles just using a basic search function, those would be the same ones that surface for virtual agent. So I'm not sure if the concern is for external users that would see it. I think your control and gating mechanism there would just be where you actually deploy, where virtual agent can be reached or interacted with by an end user.
Awesome. Thanks, Jason. So looking at the chat a little bit further, it seems like probably deflect incidents and cases and improve employee experience are the two areas in which people are most focused on for their desired business outcomes. Some challenges are justifying ITSM Pro itself, which I totally hear you, and is something that the part of the reason why we have like success dashboard and VA analytics as well is to really showcase the value of these products as well. If users are using chat and we do not have Teams or virtual agent integrated, then we are missing an opportunity to provide communication. Exactly. So that integration, those collaboration channels are really key to see a lot of the value of virtual agent. So I think we have one more question in the Q&A. Are there any out-of-the-box metrics for virtual agent to showcase employee experience improvement? Jason, do you want to just talk about that when we do the demo, any of the metrics we have for VA analytics?
Yeah, I think it's a good opportunity to surface. We do have I think Isabella touched up a little bit on it, but there is a virtual agent analytics dashboard that does show some of the key metrics. And those are pretty standard across the board on what you have. And then we also have another success dashboard that's a little bit more ITSM specific, but both offer insights on how the bots are performing and what you're getting out of it.
Yeah. Alrighty. So I'm going to pause here and stop sharing and hand it over to Jason for our demo.
Yeah, and maybe just one last note. I see Andres had sent something else. In this case, I think just to make sure we're not conflating two different things, Virtual Agent out of the box today isn't necessarily sending any data out to OpenAI unless you're using some of the controller capabilities where you're augmenting the capabilities. So all of that can be technically controlled. So right now, the data in terms of Virtual Agent, how it's deployed, wouldn't necessarily send data out to OpenAI, if that's the consideration you have here, Andres. Or concern, rather. Okay. I will just share my screen here. So conversational interfaces, a good starting point when you are looking at deploying Virtual Agent. This is the home page. And from here, there was some basic statistics that you can see. My instance doesn't have a ton of activity, but you can kind of just glean from this. It'll show you a snapshot of how your bot's performing, basic information like users, conversations, specific issues. There's a little bit of a drop down that shows you the days that are that you can see. But if you want to drill down into more detail, you can go into the VA Analytics tab. I'll show this a little bit more toward the end. But what I want to just kind of highlight here is this is a good starting point. It's the home page for the conversational interfaces, and this will continue to iterate on each release. But there's various call to action tiles that go through and show and surface what you should potentially do next. We've got this nice bot accelerator in the latest release that kind of goes through sort of the main stages of build, launch, boost, and tune. And so going through these kind of give you a little bit more of a prescriptive guidance on what are the things that you should kind of look at next in terms of for your conversational interfaces or virtual agent deployment to get the most out of it. I like to kind of look at, if you're new to virtual agent and you haven't really looked at or analyzed your current incident load to understand where your hotspots, one good place to start is the recommended topics. There is a topic recommendation tool that does do an analysis based on your incident or potentially other areas that you're deploying. So if you're looking at HR, you could also look at cases. But in the purposes of this deployment, I'll just go over to topic recommendations. And you can reach that a few different ways, either from the homepage, looking at the Essentials tab to get started here, or you can go into the left nav on your instances once you have the virtual agent suite installed. So topic recommendation here will I've already ran the analysis, but right now it's triggered on some of the sources where I'm looking at incidents, interactions, requests, and some of the fallback utterances that have already happened on the system. You can tune these to more specific areas, like maybe you have specific incidents that you want to exclude. Maybe there's a lot of machine-generated incidents, depending on how your ServiceNow environment is configured, you can exclude those. And based on, looking at the advanced settings, you can kind of change and tune that. But for the purposes of this, I've set it up just to look at these four. And out of those, it's kind of grouped together 17 and 28% of requests that could potentially be mapped to topics. So in this case, if we just kind of look at these are kind of areas that I've already kind of looked at. So it's reset passwords or potentially change passwords. These are also looking at other areas that today they have clustered the incidents, but not necessarily there is an out-of-the-box topic that matches to it. So you can still kind of go in here and add specific intents. And intents is really sort of what is the intention of the user and what is it that they're trying to get? And if there's an automation or knowledge base article or potentially a catalog item that could surface to them and kind of complete what they're looking for. So this sort of kind of offers a little bit of a heat map on what it's found. Some of this is maybe irrelevant to your instances, but just in terms of my demo instance, I've got a few different areas. Maybe there's like a finance thing. What I can do is select any number of these items, and what it'll do is it'll create a stubbed out topic in Virtual Agent Designer, and from there, you as a VA admin or platform owner can go and build out the topic. And so the difference here, just to kind of go back and reiterate, these are going to be out of the box topics that either exist or maybe you've built topics that kind of map to. And so these will be using probably templates that we have already, and we'll make a copy of it. So what I'll do is, let me add one of these here. And then what it'll do is it'll take me to the designer. So you'll see this button that kind of comes up here. But this is a really good starting point because you don't necessarily have to, activate Virtual Agent or anything to kind of get this started. You can open this, run an analysis on your instance, kind of get an idea where you have some major clusters of incidents, and start planning what your virtual agent would look like. So if I go here, add to VA, I've got different models that I can select to add to. And what this is doing is the models are the natural language understanding models that are used to understand the intention of the users. So in this case, I've got a few different models set up. So I'll just add this for now to my test model. And it'll then create this into the designer app. And so I'll let that kind of add, but let me jump over to, looking at the topics and the designer experience, just so you kind of have a little bit of a look and feel for it. So if I go here, let's see.
Dr. Jason, we have a few questions that I thought maybe we could answer.
Sure.
So somebody asked, can HR have their own conversational interfaces separate from IT?
Yeah, there's some, so the bots can all be configured separately on different pages. So you could have the same virtual agent exist on different pages. And what you can do is you can surface specific topics. And that's probably a good segue to the designer experience. But from there, you can kind of segregate topics based on, what personas are going to it, and also what pages are being surfaced to look at that. Any other questions?
IMS seems not part of interaction any reason. I'm not sure if maybe they can elaborate in the chat on that question.
Yeah, maybe more elaboration there would be helpful.
And then the last one is, can you configure virtual agent to be on your teams and not on portal? And then if so, would you recommend for internal users that are actually, I'll answer this question offline.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. So after that addition, you could see that it added it, and I could go to designer from here, or you can look at this main tab and go into the designer. And this is, a drag and drop experience. There's different tiles that you can kind of add to it, but let's look at sort of the recommendations that were just added. So I've got a few that I've already set up before, but some of these were ones that we just selected and added. And for the ones that don't have topics, you'll notice that it has this topic flow needed. So you'll want to go in and kind of configure it. What this has done so far is just really created a placeholder. And then, but what it's actually populated is the NLU intent as part of that. And it's taken the utterances that it's found from your incident records and started and gave you kind of a starting point to identify that. So that's kind of what that whole topic recommendations initially starts with, and you can kind of build these topics as needed. But to the earlier question, there's a properties tab here, where you can kind of define what channels something specifically shows up in. Is there any specific context? And so that's how you can split off specific like HR topics or IT topics depending on where someone enters. Okay. Any other questions before I go?
No, I think we're good.
Okay. Yeah, so this is the designer experience. We have some categories of out-of-the-box topics, as Isabella had mentioned before. So you'll see there are some ITSM specific topics. I've got some workplace ones that are installed as well as part of this, but you can kind of deselect the categories and see the full list of topics. And what usually you'll look at is, let's see if there's a good example. We've got some actionable notification topics, which can do some basic actions, but just to kind of show you the look and feel of a topic, we've got, quite a bit of different components that can be leveraged here that are pretty comprehensive in terms of being able to interact with the platform. There's things that are looking for user inputs. There's some bot responses that the bot can respond with, and then specific utilities to maybe even look up or trigger any sort of flow designer actions if you guys are using our integration hub suite of products. But you'll just kind of see essentially like, here's a topic flow. This is a little bit pretty straightforward in terms of just being able to add comment to an incident, looks for incidents for the user, and then it'll look up some of those pieces. So that's sort of the designer. I think probably just spend a little bit of time looking at the end user experience before I jump back into the admin experience, so that everyone here has kind of a look and feel. So I know there's some conversations around, Isabel, as you had just previously mentioned, like where to deploy the virtual agent. This is on the portal. It can be defined really whether you want to deploy this on a service portal. If you're using Employee Service Center, you can deploy it there. You can also exclude the web channels, right? It doesn't preclude you to necessarily say you have to actually put these on the web. They could just be interacted only through Teams, so or any other channel. Maybe you're using Slack and you want to only deploy it on Slack. So all of those can be really controlled based on what channels you want to configure, and you can do that from the admin experience. But I thought maybe if folks haven't really seen the end user experience, you can sort of see here it's surfaced. I've got some promoted topics that I can show that maybe there's common ones that people have issues with. Maybe they're trying to reset something or they have some VPN issues. You can surface those topics at the top. This isn't a requirement. Otherwise, typically you'll see some sort of show me everything, so they can kind of look through a laundry list of topics that are available, or they can type in some sort of requests. Maybe I say I'm having some email issues, and it'll surface probably any relevant email topics. And so kind of going back to what we talked about, so here it's triggered the email issues. Let's say these aren't really specific ones that that are relevant to what my issues are. I could maybe say something like a different issue, problems with my Outlook sending or something, right? We can kind of look at this, and it'll give an opportunity where it can then search the knowledge base. So this is sort of where, if you're starting the journey with Virtual Agent, it's good to have a good knowledge base article curated. It's good to have a decent catalog, because if the topics, and typically you won't, initially when you're starting, have a huge long list of topics already built and kind of getting started. So it helps to have some sort of fallback experience so users don't get very frustrated in terms of what they're looking for. So hopefully, if the content is available out there, there's an opportunity for the virtual agent to not only see if there's a topic that matches, and if not, then look into knowledge base articles or catalog items that could potentially help. So it gives kind of two or three shots of opportunity for the virtual agent to help before potentially transferring to a live agent. So I could say, I can maybe look at one of these articles and then say that that's helped me resolve my issue.
So
that's,
oh,
yeah.
sorry. I was going to say a question that's relevant to this. So somebody asked or mentioned that people don't often see in the bottom right corner. And they're wondering if it could be moved up, or a pop-up can show when their user lands on the page. Any way to make it more visible?
Yeah, that's a great question. Probably in terms of the visual look and feel, these can all be customized. This is just the default. We do have some proactive triggers that have been introduced in the last couple of releases that can enhance that experience. So it would pop up and say, hey, I can help you here. It can surface here. That's a good segue also into proactive notifications. So, a lot of times we're thinking about virtual agent in a portal or even in Teams as more of a reactive, like an end user has to go out and look for that, right? To know that that's an engagement channel that's available to them. One of the big benefits of virtual agent is the proactive experience. So let's say there's, incident that's been opened, or maybe there's some announcement, or maybe there's a call to action to say, hey, you're overdue on some maybe goal setting or something from HR, and we need these documents. The virtual agent can build based on triggers, send a notification to them through the channel of choice. So, if you're using Teams, it could send a notification on Teams to let you know, hey, there's something that needs your attention. So then that becomes, a proactive reach out, which oftentimes then you'll get a little bit more value from virtual agents. So it's good to think about the proactive and reactive experiences, not just like typically what you think of, like, I know I'm going to go to this page to talk to a bot and kind of get started. Okay. Let me kind of just jump back over to the admin experience. There's a ton of stuff we could talk about. We could probably spend hours on this or full day workshop on it. But there was some discussion around like adding a portal, adding it to specific channels. So this is kind of where you can configure and specify where the actual chats actually are set up. So this shows some of the live agent queue mechanisms. This is adding the bot to that specific portal page. So if you were doing it for service portal, you would do it here. If it's for ESC, there's a similar entry that you can also set up here. But this is also where you can, deactivate these so that they don't surface on those specific channels if you didn't want. I'll talk a little bit about conversational metrics, and then from there, I'll wrap up and just open it up for any other questions that people have. So, if we're looking at specific analytics usage, let me just jump to one of the let's see where I had it. Okay, so VA analytics. You'll see the kind of the information. Let me see if I've got a instance with a little bit more data. Give me 1 second here. And so as this page is loading, you'll see that there is some different overviews. So right now, this one on my instance, there wasn't a ton of activity, but based on the deflection configurations you have, so we've got some ITSM default ones that show up, and based on those, how they're captured on the topics, they'll show you, what's happened in the previous days. You'll see things around active users. I'm still loading my other instance, so give me 1 second. Let me see if I can get it loaded. Okay. All right. Looks like I'm having some issues with my other instance, but anyways, I will just show. So this one, kind of give you a look and feel in terms of the number of active users, topic flows that have been completed, and then the channels. So if you had different channels, you could see a snapshot of where people are engaging with the virtual agent. And there's several different metrics here that you can look at based on drill down. You can look at specific conversations. You can look at a little bit of the flow based on the date. You can see, what that conversation dialogue looked like, and then also what was the completed state or end state. But there's a pretty comprehensive set of metrics here that allow you to kind of really understand what is happening with the bot and how you can potentially make improvements, what topics are resonating with folks, like which ones are being hit. And, if you had sort of good, well, right now, I don't have too many topics here, so they're just showing both, but you could kind of see if you had more content, then you would have a little bit of a snapshot on which topics are not performing well because they're not either being completed by end users, or there's they're not actually resolving end users queries. So then that's a good opportunity to look at and evaluate those topics and see how you could potentially improve them to give a better experience. And then so there's some other few areas like predictions, understanding what the user is saying and how to improve that prediction so that they get to the correct topics. There's opportunities to kind of look at, where people got to the right thing and where there's potentially incorrect predictions. So yeah, I won't go over the rest of these, but suffice to say, there's a pretty comprehensive set of metrics and information that are tracked by the bot that can help you understand the performance and improve the performance of your virtual agent in terms of the bot. And lastly, we do have a success dashboard that is a little bit more ITSM focused, but it will aggregate some of the information from your incidents as well as from virtual agent. And you can kind of see that it's just one subset of kind of the pieces you'll see, but you'll be able to kind of look at the breakdown of, like, for example, in this case, I've got 21% self-solved rates, and this will kind of pull in and you can kind of drill out and look at details. And these will be a little bit more tied specifically to your business objectives that you've defined within the ITSM space. So here I've got kind of a breakdown of ITSM issues that were solved by virtual agent. And then you can kind of see the number based on that. And from that, you can also look at self-solve that was potentially driven through knowledge base articles, and then if there are specific automations. So this is kind of where that information from virtual agent can then surface and show as a snapshot on how it's performing against other areas and potentially where you can improve and find opportunities for additional deflection. Okay. That's all I had to show. I'll open it up to see if there's any questions. Feel free to type it in the chat. And Isabella, is there any questions that
there are some questions in the Q&A function, if you don't mind getting to them, and I can wrap up.
Sure.
They're a little bit longer, so you might want to actually read them and digest them rather than me trying to read them out loud.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so I'm going to take over screen sharing. We have one final poll question. So after this session, are you more likely to implement virtual agent for your organization? Yes, you're accelerating your plans or starting plans, still no plans yet, or other. Just kind of general idea to see the impact of understanding virtual agent at this high level a little bit better. So if we can start that poll. Let's see. Having a little trouble on my end. Oh, there we go. It just was on my other monitor. Never mind. Alrighty, so just a few more moments. Still mostly just starting start plans, which is great. We love to see that everyone is that's participating is still ready. If you do not have if it's not really changed your plans yet, that's totally okay. We understand. We're not expecting just 1 hour always to make that much of an impact, but hopefully over time, after you've sat with this information, it will help you with your plans to implement virtual agent, get started with it. So I'm going to end that poll. We don't need to share the results, but as I mentioned there, most people, 59% said yes, start plan. So that's great. So moving forward, just a few more things to note here. So we do have virtual agent expert services available. We have 3 packages for this. Ramp Me Up, which is where you get quick rollout of about 16 pre-built conversations for your organization. And then we have the Now Intelligence Implementation Service, which is Enable Me. So about 15 conversations activated, and you are enabled to continue on your virtual agent journey. And lastly, the Do It For Me, which is our virtual agent optimized. This is really where we have a team of experts come in, delivering quarterly projects releases, enhancing your virtual agent, enabling you and optimizing your existing conversations as well. So those are the 3 services that we offer. We also have Jumpstart Your Virtual Agent. So really the focus area here is cloning your instance, activating and configuring virtual agent based upon your data, where you can preview what it looks like from a virtual agent perspective in your own environment. And then we can share best practices and learnings from other customers to accelerate adoption, and then provide documentation and implementation guides to help you configure and fine-tune virtual agent going forward. We also have Tune Your Virtual Agent. So solving requests quickly, increasing workforce productivity through machine learning, and driving towards continual service improvement. So really helping you tune your virtual agent to drive towards these business outcomes that you're seeking. So for any of these services, please reach out to your account team as well. They can help figure out what's best for you, talk to the right people, and get you connected. So lastly, some of our pro tips. So upgrade. We have Upgrade Essentials training as well. We have, that should say Utah, sorry, upgrading to your Utah release upgrade kit, a step-by-step guidance on Now Create, as well as release and upgrades, posts, blog posts, things like that on our community page, and then leveraging our in-platform tools to manage your upgrades. Lastly, always measuring success. This is something we discussed a little bit earlier, but you can use this success dashboard to really see the performance and progress of your all your ITSM products and other platform products as well. Performance analytics, you can use that for individual virtual agent understanding of the performance, measuring success. Predictive intelligence, you could see predictive precision as for PI indicators as well. And then again, as I mentioned, conversational analytics dashboard to really see the performance of virtual agent. I know I'm running through this all a little bit fast. We can also drop in some resources for you all to ensure your success into the chat. And then I think that's all, just in the nick of time. We have 5 minutes left. If there's any other questions that we need to answer, Jason, just let me know. If not, thanks everyone. We'll just stay on to answer the last few questions. And then we will, again, thank you everyone for joining. Hopefully this session was helpful. Feel free to join us on our June 22nd workshop. It's a lot more hands-on. We'll work through an instance together. And yeah, it'll be great. Thanks everyone.